This program contains rare films of World War II originally shot in color, found during a 2-year worldwide search. Much of it has never been seen on television before. These films are presented now in high definition. Some images are graphic in nature, and viewer discretion is advised.
In the Pacific, in mortal combat against a fanatic foe, the Kamikaze Corps, the Japanese pilots who rode the divine wind to certain suicide and possible devastation of our ship.
Grant us a common faith that man shall know bread and peace, that he shall know justice and righteousness, freedom and security, an equal opportunity and an equal chance to do his best, not only in our own lands, but throughout the world.
The greatest generation would imply, to my mind, people who really were involved and knew what was at stake. And I think the majority of the greatest generation didn't have a notion of what was at stake. When I had this young boy, a boy from Mississippi, a farm boy, he was in that foxhole next to me. And out of nowhere, through the mist, came a bullet that hit him right in the head. And there was a kid who didn't know anything. He'd never been away from the farm in Mississippi. He didn't know where he was, what he did, why he was there. Was he a part of the greatest generation? Yes. There was nothing great about him. Just a young boy who lost his life. I arrived in New York in May of 1939.
I was an American lover from the word go. The first thing I do is change my name from Hans Warner to Jack Warner. Already, I feel more like an American.
It is May 1939. 19-year-old immigrant Jack Warner is setting out on a drive across the country to Hollywood, California, where he hopes to break into the movie business. His home country of Austria has embraced Nazi extremism. Now he's fled to America to begin a new life.
2 homers in a row.
It's a wonderful trip. Everyone here is so kind and generous. No one even asks me about what is happening in Europe, even after they hear my accent. I suppose they don't want to be impolite. They don't understand how lucky they are not having to look over their shoulder. I suppose if it doesn't happen in your own backyard, you don't know much about it. I can't blame them. Europe seems so far away. I remember when I was in Austria. It was just after Hitler took over. All of his anti-Jewish laws were put into effect immediately. We were no longer considered citizens. Within a week, my father was fired from his job. Our bank account was frozen. We had no one to turn to. And then one morning, I woke up early. And outside my window, this man was singing a few lines from the Horst Wessel Lied, which was the Nazi party anthem. It went like this. When Jewish blood flows from our knives,
everything will be well. There were people already walking on the street. Nobody said anything. That was the moment when I decided, that's enough. I'm out of here. And that very
evening I left. I knew what could happen to Jewish people like myself. I knew what was already happening, so I escaped through the Alps and I headed to America because I knew it wasn't going to stop.
Stunned by the sudden thrust of the Nazi drive into the North countries, troops rallied around loyal officers to defend their homeland. This scene was repeated in hundreds of Norwegian villages, even as the enemy moved in for the kill.
We are shocked by the almost incredible eyewitness stories that come to us. Stories of what is happening at this moment to the civilian population of Norway.
To my friend and colleague, Mr. Winston Churchill.
The signed the most humiliating armistice in the history of France. As wave after wave of bombers pounded the city into a raging inferno, Goering waited for his finest hour that slowly died amid the flaming wreckage and the undaunted courage of the savage air-pounding of the war. Bracing themselves against Hitler's savage bombing attacks, the seemingly
Again, those were explosions overhead. Earlier this evening, we heard a number of bombs go sliding and slithering across the fall several blocks away.
I speak to you for the first time as Prime Minister in a solemn hour for the life of our country, of our empire, of our allies, and above all, of the cause of freedom.
Hundreds died as 1,500 fires burned historic landmarks into blackened shells of debris.
We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall never surrender.
Hitler unleashed the power of his Luftwaffe in an effort to conquer Britain from the air. Military statistics proved British victory. Englishmen looked in vain for squadrons of Nazi aircraft. Britain's skies were scarred by brutal combat.
If we can stand up to him, all Europe may be freed. But if we fail, then the whole world, including the United States, including all that we have known and cared for, will sink into the abyss.
With a third of Europe now under Nazi control, America still sits on the sidelines. Many believe the war to be Europe's problem. Recalling the horrors of World War I, the majority of Americans don't want to get involved in another European war. President Franklin Roosevelt attempts to convince them otherwise.
There are many among us who in the past closed their eyes to events abroad because they believed that what was taking place in Europe was none of our business. That we could maintain our physical safety by retiring within our continental boundaries. Obviously, a defense policy based on that is merely to invite future attack. To those who would not admit the possibility of the approaching storm, the past weeks have meant the shattering of many illusions.
On September 16, 1940, Roosevelt signs the Selective Training and Service Act, the first peacetime draft in American history. All able-bodied men between 21 and 30 must register for military service. Though Congress approves the bill, it is careful to call it a national defense measure. The draftees may only be sent to defend American-held territories.
I told my brother I'm gonna get grabbed in by this draft. And sure enough, I'm the first number in my town.
In upstate New York, a soft-spoken farm boy named Archie Sweeney has just been drafted.
Things are already hard enough at home, especially since Mama died. She made us promise we would stick together, and we told her we would.
Sweeney is on his way to Fort Bragg in North Carolina. He has never been outside of New York State before, or on a train.
Hopefully all this will blow over soon, and I can get back home.
After several failed attempts, Austrian immigrant Jack Werner abandons his dream of breaking into the movie business. Instead, he takes a job in a flower shop.
One day, out of nowhere, I run into Ralph Lieben, a friend of mine I hadn't seen in years. Ralph's an American I met in Paris after I escaped Austria. He sort of took me under his wing. Helped me with my English. But that was a long time ago. Ralph tells me the latest news from Europe. It's hard to imagine. Now those filthy Nazis are parading around like they own the place. The more Ralph and I talk about the Germans, the angrier I get. Somebody needs to stop them before they take over the entire world. That's when I realized it's time to stop talking and start doing something about it. Taking actions instead of words. I mean, we have been living with that for years and years. You have to understand that my life and his life were really almost completely obsessed with Hitler and what Hitler was going to do and the state of the world. And we decided that, it's about time to stop talking and doing something. That's when we took the critical action of going down to Fort MacArthur in San Pedro and enlisting in the army.
The military Archie Sweeney and Jack Werner join has only just begun to build up its arsenal. 2 years ago, the United States had the 17th largest army in the world, smaller than tiny Romania's. And almost 2/3 of American recruits have never fired a rifle. At Fort Ord in Monterey Bay, California, Jack Werner begins his basic training with the 7th Army Infantry. It is a sobering, even frightening experience.
It is shocking how unprepared we are, how naive everyone is, parading around with Springfield rifles and World War I steel helmets. How can they expect in the 20th century to fight a war against a well-equipped enemy with this kind of gear? Do they think we can fight Hitler's panzers on horseback? They have no idea.
By the spring of 1941, Hitler is the unchallenged master of most of continental Europe. His fighting forces have brought 11 countries and over 70 million people under the Nazi flag. In nearly every conquered country, Hitler's troops from the Nazi Party's Waffen-SS and the regular German army carry out a policy of oppression and mass murder. In a small Yugoslavian town, German cameraman Gottfried Kessel is filming when German soldiers select 36 Serbians from the population and lead them to a nearby cemetery. The previous night, unknown gunmen had fired on some German officers from this very spot. The Germans are sending a grim message to any Serbians thinking about resisting. By the summer of 1941, Hitler is ready to launch his forces further east. In June, his armies invade the Soviet Union. By September, they have captured over 1.4 million Soviet troops. 1 month later, American government agents intercept a secret Nazi map. It outlines Hitler's plan to reorganize South America after he conquers it. In November, Germany, Japan, and Italy renew their military alliance. All agreed to safeguard their common interests. The Axis powers are ready to carve up the world.
Join them in just a moment.
News of the Japanese attack reached the president at 2:25 p.m., 7:35 this morning Hawaiian time. The capital is seething with excitement. President Roosevelt has been in almost constant session with the secretaries of the War and Navy. White House also announced that an Army transport carrying lumber has been sunk between San Francisco and Hawaii. The Japanese aircraft carrier has just been sunk.
San Francisco, with the entire West Coast on a virtual war basis, Mayor Angelo J. Rossi declared San Francisco in a state of emergency tonight.
And the battleship West Virginia was reported sunk. Also, the battleship Oklahoma has been set on fire. The rest of the fleet is steamed out of Pearl Harbor.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you this important bulletin from the United Press. Flash, Washington. The White House announces Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
And from Singapore come reports that Japanese planes are over British Burma.
Japan has made war on the United States without declaring it.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Coach Iba comes in and says, I got bad news. The Japanese have just bombed Pearl Harbor.
I doubt if any of us really knew where in the hell Pearl Harbor was.
On December 7th, 1941, Charles Scheffel is a 20-year-old college senior playing basketball for Oklahoma A&M. He is on a full scholarship, playing under the legendary coach Hank Iba.
And he said, how many of you are in advanced military? So 6 of us raised our hands. And he said, well, I want you to know that
you are at war. We're so angry. All we can think is the Jap bastards will pay for the sneak attack.
This restored film of the immediate aftermath of the attack on Pearl Harbor has never been shown in public.
Last night, Japanese forces attacked Hong Kong. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Guam. Last night, Japanese forces attacked the Philippine Islands. Last night, the Japanese attacked Wake Island. And this morning, the Japanese attacked Midway Island. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. The people of the United States have already formed their opinions and well understand the implications to the very life and safety of our nation.
I am shocked and surprised, but I have to admit, I am relieved that it has finally come to it. The next day, we packed up
and moved out to the northern part of California and stationed ourselves on the coast, awaiting the invasion of the dreaded
Japanese army. This is crazy. We have just one machine gun emplacement to defend the entire beach with.
Four days after the attack on Pearl Harbor, Germany and Italy declare war on the United States. It is the first and only time Hitler actually declares war on another nation. The wars in Europe and Asia now merge into a single gigantic world war, the largest war in history.
And citizens are urged to remain calm and avoid all unnecessary confusion because of hysteria.
Across the U.S., panic spreads as Americans realize they have enemies off both coasts. Surging above the fear is a wave of patriotism and outrage. Within 30 days of the attack, over 134,000 young men enlist for service. They want to fight back, but still must undergo months of training before deploying. In the meantime, America's current military force of just under 500,000 will do what it can. After months of fighting to prevent the Japanese from taking the Philippines, U.S. military leaders realize the situation is hopeless. Their Navy is outmatched, powerless to deliver reinforcements. Back in February, they ordered the commanding general, Douglas MacArthur, to evacuate by night and leave his troops behind. And now, more than 76,000 American and Filipino soldiers are taken prisoner by the Japanese on the Bataan Peninsula. In May, 2 American naval task forces, including 2 of our precious aircraft carriers, engage a Japanese task force in the Coral Sea. 1 American carrier is sunk, another damaged. 1 month later, our remaining carriers ambush the Japanese fleet near Midway Island. It is a rousing victory. 4 enemy carriers are sunk, but the Navy loses the Yorktown. It now has only 3 carriers left in the Pacific.
amazing and eerie to be here, in the exact place where the whole war began for us.
"24-year-old Richard Tregaskis is a cub reporter for the International News Service. After months of lobbying his bosses for a combat assignment, he's finally arrived in Pearl Harbor with orders to cover the expanding American war in the Pacific.
The Navy's been busy trying to repair what ships it can. From the looks of it, it's going to take a long time before the fleet is fully restored.
7 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, repairs are underway on 5 of the 8 battleships damaged in the assault. The likelihood is high that they will return to service, but not right away. For the time being, at least, the Navy will be fighting at nowhere near full strength.
When I first got here, I expected the mood to be bleak. But more than anything, people seemed energized and angry.
In May of 1942, Charles Scheffel graduates from college and immediately becomes a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army.
With all that's happening, I'm ready to serve my country. I'm more than ready.
He knows it is only a matter of time before he will deploy.
So I pick up the phone, I call my girlfriend Ruth, and I ask her to marry me next week if she'll have me. And she says yes. When orders come for me to report to Camp Kilmer for debarkation, Ruth travels with me. She's gonna stay at a hotel in New York until I go. Well, within 3 hours of my arrival, our group is completely outfitted and sealed in a holding area. So much for goodbyes.
The New York port of embarkation has been helping to keep England in the war by sending food and munitions. Now, hundreds of outgoing ships are packed with American men ready to take the fight to the enemy. But the enemy is already at America's door. For months, Hitler's U-boats have been terrorizing the Atlantic seaboard. In 1942 alone, U-boats sink over 1,000 ships bound for England and the Soviet Union. So when Charles Scheffel and the troops ship out, they must do so under the cover of darkness. There is no fanfare, no throngs of waving loved ones. America is sneaking off to war.
Our lifeboats can only hold 2,500 men. So if we're hit, the rest of us will just jump into the Atlantic.
Halfway around the world, combat reporter Richard Tregaskis has joined a far larger military convoy cutting through the vast Pacific Ocean.
All around us there are transports, cruise ships, destroyers. The Navy only has 4 aircraft carriers, and 3 of them are perched right on the rim of the ocean.
The depleted American Navy is using old cruise liners converted into transports to carry more than 10,000 untested Marines. Their objective, a remote jungle island at the southern tip of the Solomon Islands. It is called Guadalcanal. There, the Japanese are building an airfield that, once finished, will allow their bombers to threaten the vital sea lanes that connect America to Australia. If they succeed, our England in the Pacific will be isolated, ripe for Japanese invasion. The fate of the entire Pacific War hangs in the balance. young Marines and sailors on their way to Guadalcanal don't realize is that amphibious landings against defended beaches are the most desperate and dangerous of all military operations. America has not attempted one since 1898.
Church services are crowded this morning. We've been told that we're to land in 5 days, making this the last Sunday for communion. A lot of guys want to settle themselves and be prepared for at least the possibility of death. On deck, everyone's cleaning and oiling their rifles, their machine guns, and their mortars with motherly care. Some sharpen bayonets, while others leisurely turn over a hand or two of cards. It seems amazing that people can relax like this when they are heading for the unpleasant realities of danger and bloodshed. Intelligence estimates that only 1 in 3 landing boats will reach shore safely, and that 1 in 4 Marines will not survive the initial assault. But I came here to see some action, and I intend to go in with the first assault wave.
After 7 days at sea, the Marines close in on Guadalcanal.
A cool, tropical air envelops the ship as we penetrate the inner harbor. Where are the Japs?
Their shore guns are eerily quiet. Everyone is silent and nervous as we move close to shore.
It's as if we're an unwelcomed guest walking through the front door of a waiting and armed host. There didn't seem to be much to say, although a few lads come up with the inevitable, "Well, this is it."
At 0900 hours, the order is given. Land the landing force.
On shore, it's absolute silence. It's eerie. There isn't a single Jap here to meet us. One of the lieutenants says, "I wonder if the Japs can be this dumb." Either they're dumb, or it's a trick.
got us busy drilling, and camping, and marching. I thought farm work was hard, but it's nothing compared to this.
Upstate New York farm boy Archie Sweeney is farther from home than he's ever been before, now assigned to the 39th Infantry Regiment, H Company.
They got us practicing something called amphibian operations. Lucky for me, there's no swimming, but you do get awfully wet. We've all been waiting for word on when we're gonna ship out. But when it finally comes, we're told to head up to Norfolk to prepare for deployment. But nobody says where to.
On October 23, 1942, now Corporal Archie Sweeney and the 39th Infantry Regiment are on a ship sailing out of Norfolk Naval Base.
When I got into the Army, I guess I never figured on going to sea. It's a huge convoy, and we have battleships and destroyers escorting us, zigging and zagging to keep the U-boats from picking up our trail. Now I wish I had learned how to swim.
They are the first American ground troops dispatched to fight Hitler. Part of a gigantic amphibious force of 100,000 men and 120 vessels of all kinds departing simultaneously from ports in both America and Britain. Sailing out of Liverpool, England, is Second Lieutenant and former college basketball player Charles Sheffel. After surviving his transatlantic journey, he had spent 3 months training with the British in the UK.
Everyone's guessing about our destination. You know, soldiers will gamble on anything. So we form a pool and we start betting. I'm thinking Norway. But after 3 days of sailing,
I went to see the brigadier. I said, "Sir, my men are down here in this hold. They've been on deck for 3 days. I've got to know what's happening." He said, "We're going to make the invasion of North Africa."
For over 2 years, Hitler's troops have been battling the British in North Africa, struggling for control of the Suez Canal. If the Germans can take the canal, they will have a secure passageway to the Middle East and its rich oil reserves to fuel their mechanized army.
the Brits taught the American boys in our unit everything they could about combat against the Germans. Now it's time to see if I've learned enough.
Eight months to the day after Pearl Harbor, combat reporter Richard Drogaskis is with the 1st Marines on Guadalcanal. There is still no sign of the enemy. The men move out cautiously through the untracked jungle toward their objective, the unfinished airfield less than a mile inland. Drogaskis follows, armed only with a notebook and a pen.
The jungle is a pestilential hellhole. The air is thick, oppressively hot and humid. This vine-choked rainforest blocks out the sun, and the undergrowth gives off a strange kind of vile smell.
It soon becomes apparent the Marines are not alone. Japanese snipers, expertly camouflaged in the dense brush, take shots at the Marines.
Snipers are everywhere and nowhere. A man falls after being shot in the leg, and no one sees who shot him. One grunt comes up to me and says, "I wish those goddamn Japs would come out and fight. All they do is run into the jungle." But now we have another unavoidable hell. Nighttime. This is the Japs' island, and they know it well. Will they slip inside our perimeter and slit our throats in the middle of the night? Attack our entire group, or just pick us off, one by one? We dig foxholes in the ground. Everyone is jittery. The sentries are firing at every noise. Who knows what's out there?
Early on the second day, the Marines pushed through the jungle towards the crushed coral airstrip. As they close in on the field, they are met once again with silence. The Japanese, the masters of surprise warfare, have themselves been caught by surprise. Panicked by the previous day's bombardment and aerial bombing, their units have fled inland, abandoning the unfinished airfield. By 1600 hours, the Marines declare it secured. But the enemy is not ready to surrender. From their naval base at Rabaul, 600 miles to the north, the Japanese launch a massive counterattack. That night, the Japanese Navy delivers a devastating blow to our fleet. An immense battle erupts offshore. The Marines on Guadalcanal can do little but take cover and await the outcome.
We hear the booming of the guns. It occurs to me, the fate of all of us hangs on that sea battle. If our Navy loses, the Japs will be ashore before morning. It's terrible to feel so dependent. I get the awful feeling of being pitifully small, just a tiny particle caught up in the gigantic whirlpool of war.
Come morning, the Marines can see the smoke and twisted wreckage of 4 heavy cruisers and the burned, oil-soaked bodies of American sailors floating in the waters off Guadalcanal. And when they search the horizon for the aircraft carriers that had covered their landing, they see nothing but empty ocean. The American naval commander has left a day earlier than planned to protect his irreplaceable carriers. Left without air cover, the transports in the bay have also withdrawn, taking with them the rest of the supplies and the nearly 2,000 additional men that were supposed to be landed. The Marines on shore are alone, isolated, and abandoned. Without adequate food, ammunition, or medicine. And without naval or air cover, they are at the mercy of enemy attacks.
The officers are jittery. They talk like magpies far into the night, wondering when the Jap counterattack will come. It's like Bataan all over again.